Welcome back, everybody. Today I'm going to show you how you can use the thick coil technique to create something like a bust construction. So all of this bottom part was created with thick coil. If you remember my piece too that we talked about, this whole form was created by thick coil. So it's a way to quickly create a form without all of those small decorative coils that you might see in a coil pot, for instance. So we need a lot of clay for this, and you need to move really quickly. In my other video, I showed how you can start forming a pinch pot or two pinch pots into a head. So I'm gonna use this as kind of the head portion of the bust that I'm creating. And then I'm gonna use my thick coil for the bottom part. So this is typically the part that you would do first before the pinch pot head. So just to start with, I kind of started getting some thick coils going, but I'm gonna show you with another piece of clay. So some wedged clay, all I'm doing is kind of very quickly pinching it to create a longer coil. This, if you notice, it's still like double the size of my thumb, if not bigger, but at this point it stretches it out a little bit, and I'm trying to move quickly. Instead of the typical way that you roll a coil to make it really beautiful, instead, all I'm gonna do is flatten it with my hand a little bit. So my goal is to keep the clay about, I don't know, between 1/4 and 1/2 inch here, because I want it to have a lot of structure. But then I'm flattening it on the other side, so when I use it standing up, it works a lot quicker. So this is actually gonna be half of the base. So this part right down at the bottom, we're just making basically a circle or an oval to start with. Okay, so I have one of those already formed. I'm gonna do the same with the other one. And if you've already made the head, for instance, with what I've done, you kind of want to hold it up every once in a while just to evaluate the size. All right, if you need to, you can stretch your coils. You can also add other clay onto the end of the coil to lengthen it. Okay, so I've got my coils here at the ends. It's really great to, especially with this first round, slipping and scoring is really important because the base has to be so strong. So I just added some slip. I am not just connecting them, but I'm also really smoothing the clay both on the inside and the outside so nobody can see that seam and it looks like it's all connected as one. So as promised, I just turned this into a big oval. Just to make sure the other side is really well attached, I'm gonna flip it over. I notice I can see the seam. This is a place you could add a Band-Aid coil to if you feel like you need it. But with thick coil, you wanna move quickly. The whole point, the whole benefit of it is if it's soft enough, you can really manipulate the layers together really well. All right, the next part, I'm gonna do another coil. Remember, real quick, doesn't have to be fancy. This is going to be the neck part. So inside of this, I'm gonna be putting a circle, and I need that to support the weight of the head. If I just did this outer form, when I put the head on the top, it would sink it down in. So I made my piece, kind of seeing how big I need it to be. In this case, it's a little too long, so I'm just gonna cut a little bit off, smooth it all together really well. And then once again, because this is a really important seam, where it's attaching to the sides, I'm adding slip, I'm scratching so that it's really fused together. You do not want these two pieces to come apart in the next part or when it's firing. All right, so now I have this neck support area and I have the outer layer of the shoulder. Now I'm gonna show you more what you typically do with thick coils. So even if you're not doing bust construction, this is helpful to see the next layer. I keep saying you gotta move quick. You're seeing how quick I'm making this. It's only been 4 minutes and I already have that base layer. With my next coil, I know that I want these shoulders to close off. So you have choices. You could attach your coil straight on top. You could attach it flaring out if you wanted it to get bigger. In my case, I want it to kind of get a little smaller. So I'll even do half of it just to show you a little bit more clearly. Okay, so I'm trying to close this off to be a shoulder. So you can see because it's soft, I'm able to actually pinch and pull it in. Okay, when I go to attach, quick slip on that surface, same thing here, and attach it right on. You'll notice I'm being very quick with my slipping and scoring because more so, I mean, it's important to slip and score here, but the most important part is to fuse the layers together with what I'm doing with my fingers here. So just kind of making it look like those layers don't exist. Now, another great tool to do this smoothing part that I'm talking about would be your rib tool, like we used in our tripod vessels. So I'm just trying to get rid of that seam, and it's important to do that on the inside and the outside. You don't want the coils to show, you're just using this as a construction technique. All right, now most people would get to this point and they'd be like, oh, look at all those marks that are showing, I gotta clean that up. That's a later detail. For now, what's most important is getting the integrity of the form. So I need to keep moving. I need to get my next coil started and continue up. So if you are doing this bust construction, your next layer of support, you would continue this coil around the sides, and then I would need to add one more in the center here. Once I add that one in the center, I'd probably need to add one more, because if you think about it, your shoulders end at a certain height, then your neck, and then the head sits on top of them. So it's important to get all of those things correct. So pretend I did the other coil around here, pretend I attached this whole neck one in. My next step would be to add one more that sits up a little bit taller. Okay, and then I can start to see my neck, I can start to see those shoulders. Since it's soft enough, I can continue to kind of pinch and close this area in. But another great trick is you can actually take newspaper, let me grab some. This will help you with the support as I close off this shoulder. Just by sticking some newspaper in this shoulder, now I've got something to press back against. Think about our pinch pots that kind of push back with the air inside. This is an alternate technique where I'm just kind of shoving newspaper in. Remember, newspaper is something that would just kind of disintegrate in the kiln. So even if I leave some in, it's not a big deal. For closing off this shoulder, I don't really need another thick coil. I just need this kind of weird shape. So I'm just taking a piece of clay, kind of manipulating it, and then I'm setting it on there to kind of see what shape I need. Okay, just kind of figuring out what that is. Once again, slipping and scoring my edges. If you do this technique, you definitely want to borrow a fork for it. I can set that on, and because it's soft enough, I can really just smooth it right in. And I do that right into the neck, and I do it right into the shoulder. Remember, it still doesn't look like much, what I have going here, but once you get the basics of the form, then I can go back and start smoothing. Remember, in my video, I'm just showing you half of it, but you would be doing the same thing to the other side. And then the next step would be starting to place the head on to figure out what kind of emotion, how you want it turned and such. So I hope this was instructive how to start with the thick coil technique. And if you have questions, let me know. I'll be doing another one to show you the next steps of the bust construction too.